right. Good morning, everyone. And thank you for tuning in to the Therapeutic Conversation Show. I am your guest host today, Margaret L. Cunley Green. And Dr. Brian felt it worthy for me to guest host today. So you guys keep him going. Dr. Brian has been busy. He's still a busy guy, so been very busy since he got his doctorate 2 weeks ago. So you guys keep him in prayer as he moves and goes and hosts and does things. And so again, welcome to the Therapeutic Conversation Show. And so I want to invite you guys to just be prepared to listen to the topic. There is big stuff happening. There's a lot of things happening in regards to emotional wellness, in regards to just how America, how the world is handling the weight of whatever may be happening. And so that is what we're going to be talking about today. I invite you to tune in to the entire show. It's just 1 hour of talking about what can we do as the body of Christ in regards to therapeutic wellness, and that's emotional wellness, taking care of our whole selves. What can we do and do that through the church and do that through spiritual avenues? And so let's talk. Y'all call in. I want y'all to like it, love it, share it. And I want y'all to participate in this conversation today. So if you have any questions, if you want to call, make sure to call 770-988-6461 and continue to tune in to 108 Praise Radio. We always invite God into this studio because we know that God's presence is necessary. And so, God, we invite you into this conversation this morning. So as we start this focus, this morning we're going to be talking about what does it look like to have self-care, and what does it look like to what's the church's responsibility to help individuals with their mental health, and to help our community with mental health. And so that's a big deal. Big piece of the conversation, big piece of what the church looks like. The church has a mandate, in my opinion, that's given to us in Old Testament, that we need to keep our minds stayed on God, because that keeps us in this place of perfect peace. And so what do we do to stay in perfect peace? And so this week we've had, some tragic stuff that has affected not only just, the local Atlanta community, but it has affected America, period. So we had 2 major suicides. And I even had a friend to put up, does it take Hollywood to lose someone in order for things to be seen or brought present? And so with the suicides of Kate Spade and also culinary guru Antonio Bordeaux. I think I'm saying that right. If I'm not, y'all correct me. That is, that's big. And people appear to have happy presents. I haven't found a picture yet where I could see where Kate Spade was sad. I mean, she's standing with her brother-in-law, who's really famous, and her husband. And, she looks happy. You think she's happy because she produces things that makes us happy. If you like fashion, you might have one of her handbags. You might have an iPhone case. You might have something that she produced that made you happy. And so what happens when we don't know what people are going through, as far as the culinary arts world, to watch, the gentleman that killed himself, he made you happy if you're someone that's a foodie. I mean, he took you around the world if you couldn't travel, looking at dishes and looking at things that, you might want to try. I mean, these are things that make people happy. They were public figures. They were people in the front. A lot of people in our communities are people in the front that we don't know they're suffering and going through. And so recently, the CDC put out a report, and it showed that suicide rates have increased between the years of 1999 and 2016. They've had a significant increase across age, gender, race, and ethnicity. And so that is a big deal, and it sounds like a large span of, time. But truthfully, what has happened? And they also found in their report that Nevada is the only state that recorded a decline. So I don't know if Nevada, because it has Reno and Las Vegas, I don't know if that's a happy place or whatnot. But I will say this. It's the only place that recorded a 1% decline overall in national rates. And so what is going on with our mental health? What is going on with our emotional wellness that we are seeing an increase in suicidal thought and suicidal ideation? what is going on that we do not see the need for self-preservation? And so that is a big deal, and that is what our conversation will be about today. So I encourage you guys to call in. I encourage you all to participate. Please, if you don't want to call in, leave some comments, ask some questions, because we absolutely are invested in what you are thinking, because this is a conversation. So it isn't just myself or Dr. Jones talking, but it's a conversation and a community conversation that needs to be had. So get your pens out, get your paper ready, because I want you to write down your questions. I want you to put your questions in and upload them, and even call in to talk about this and talk about experiences in your community. And for those of you who are doing things in your community, we invite you to call in and let us know, what are you doing to effectively help people in their emotional wellness. So looking at it, I always come, whenever I come on the show, I am one that I love to fuse biblical principle with mental health practice. And I do that because, again, we focus on what can the church do and what can our spiritual centers do to help and to advocate and to promote healthiness in our emotional wellness. And so, today I was reading Proverbs 4, and Proverbs is one of those places in the Bible that you go and you get this peace and this wisdom, and you see what to stay away from, you see what to connect to, and it is literally the wisdom book of the Bible, and so you go to this book and you look for wisdom. And so there is a verse that I have grown to love and become very attached to, and it's Proverbs 4, and it is Proverbs 4, verse 23. And so I'm going to read it from the NRSV, and it says, "Keep your heart with all vigilance, for from it flows the springs of life." And so for some people, that all that verse is saying is keep your mind, because out of it flows your issues. It flows what's going on. It flows where you're going. It flows what you're doing. But what happens when we have so much weight and so much going on that we don't have space to keep our hearts? We don't have space to keep our minds. We have cluttered. We have things going. So what are we doing to manage that clutter? What are we doing? Some stuff is that we're connecting with the wrong thing. And so, I'm not one to say what you need to connect to or what not, but you know that. And so what I mean is self-care is huge. And you guys call in and let me know, what you do. But self-care is big. And if we do not find a way to take care of ourselves, if we do not find a way to hold on to who we are, the truth of who we are and what we do, then we don't see those issues of life flowing out. Examples. I always say it, people laugh at me, but Jesus, at one point in the Bible, the townspeople were ready to kill him. He was telling his truth. He was putting his truth out there. He was saying who he was, what he was called to do, what he was put on this earth for, and the people in that particular place did not care for what he was saying. And so Jesus fled. It's exactly what it says. Jesus ran. Jesus left that place because he knew that it was not his time. And so I think that goes across the board, and asking, what is a personal responsibility, even before we get to what's the church's responsibility? What is our personal responsibility for self-care? What do we need to do to take care of ourselves, because it is not our time? And so suicide is one of those places where we as human beings, and we as those who maybe are religious, even spiritual, we conflict about suicide. We see it as if you commit suicide, you're going to hell. If it's a demon, it is the spirit of suicide. And so as a mental health professional, I invite people to go to someone and speak, even if you're having these thoughts. And at the end of the show, near the end, I will give you the information for where you need to go, and we'll get that posted. If you're having this, go somewhere professionally. I believe that we, in some way, have demonized mental health and emotional wellness, because we say, this person took their life, they're going to hell. This person took their life, that something is wrong with them. This person took their life, what happened with them? But have we ever asked, what happened to them prior to wanting to be in this position, in that place? And that's a look at trauma. That's a look at what was so traumatic that the value of life has left this person for themselves, and what happened with that, and what are we doing with the church? So, you guys call in and talk to me. Let me know. So what has happened that someone has lost where their self matters? Because self matters. Like, what happens to where we can't see ourselves as important? We don't see the value of our life in community. What has happened? I ask this question often. And so I ask it in therapeutic practice. I ask it whenever I present. I ask it wherever I go. And I ask it because it's a very, very, very important question. What happened to you? And what happened to you could have been good or bad. I don't know. But sometimes, often, we don't ask ourselves, what happened to us? What does our life look like? What does our timeline look like? And I think for individuals who are feeling suicidal, for individuals who are not seeing the value of their life, they're not able to see where they have been effective in their communities. They're not able to see where they have been effective in change. They're not able to see the importance and the value of who they are. And so, please join in the conversation. Please call 770-988-6461. Again, we are talking about, self-care, self matters, suicidal thoughts, what has happened recently, and what can the church do, or what's the church's responsibility in helping persons with mental health in our communities and personally. So that is what we're talking about this morning, and I want you guys to just talk and stay in. So, what can we do, and what are some preventative measures that can be put in? Because we demonized and we have put things up, and so it's a stigma on mental health. The whole month of May, NAMI ran a campaign, saying cure stigma. It didn't say cure mental health. It didn't say cure depression. It didn't say cure anxiety. It said cure stigma. That's a big deal. That the stigma itself is prohibiting people from seeking care and seeking treatment and seeking places where they can free themselves, or I guess in church terms, where they can cast their cares. And so there's something that's going on where the stigma is really hurting our community. So we have a question. Dr. Brian is actually tuning in, and he's saying, what is the responsibility of our religious community? And what are we supposed to be doing in the religious communities? What's the responsibility to our community for mental health? So, my belief is this. A lot of people say that these spiritual centers are emergency rooms, are places like hospitals, are healing, places full of healing, places where we can see that. The thing is, what is the spiritual center doing to provide its own healing? Spiritual centers themselves are hurting. We are seeing a decline in church attendance. We are seeing a decline in the growth of church. And so what happens when the church itself needs to be healed? What happens when the church itself needs to walk in this path of emotional wellness? What happens when, and I've seen a lot of things come across the board from a lot of scholars in the last week, when we are using manipulative tactics to encourage people to come to church, and we're using a lot of emotionalism. But when the church itself is unhealthy emotionally, what does that look like? And a lot of people, again, I've seen it, this week demonized, it's witchcraft, you're hurting people. But what does that look like when the church itself has some emotional damage and we as people become the collateral damage because the church itself needs to be healed? So what does that look like? Join in the conversation again. What does that look like? Because we're asking the question, what are the spiritual center's responsibilities? And Dr. Jones is really adamant each week, and he's adamant because he cares and he loves community, to say the spiritual centers, maybe, just maybe, we need to seek out training and resources from those who've been professionally trained. There is a big difference between intuition and actually having some training on top of that. There are ways and there are things that can be said that can be harmful when we really intend to do good. And so we don't want our good to be evil spoken of. So what do? We need to bring in that training. We need to bring things in. And we need to bring people in that are specialized. every therapist doesn't specialize in every piece of therapy. I want to put that out there this morning. And so effective clinical training in ministry is a big deal. You have people who are trained as professional therapists who don't know anything about the spiritual piece. They really went to school, they got trained in that. You also have people who have been trained effectively to work in our spiritual centers, and to know the difference between what is spiritual and what is really going on with someone's emotional wellness to where they're not able to manage. And so we need to have that inside of our churches, inside of our spiritual centers, because sometimes, and I might get in trouble today. Dr. Jones will get on to me, but pray always. The Bible tells you to do that. Pray without ceasing. But the Bible also says in this praying without ceasing that we need to have the wisdom, to know how to have this heart of compassion that is going to make a difference. And so that, is not saying go out and just pray about it, and be on your face about it. That is saying have a heart of compassion. That means know where you can touch and where you can go so it can make a difference. And then sometimes, that touch and knowing where you can go and how to move means you need to call in a professional, and you might need to have some training in the church. People are very quiet when it comes down to their emotional wellness. People are quiet when it comes down to church. You put on a happy face. I mean, you go to church, we say it's a healing center, but sometimes there's a stigma inside of church. Like, if I come in here and I'm too sad, then they're going to call me to the front and pray for me, or people are going to avoid me, or people are not going to talk to me, or I'm going to be put on the spot. And so people don't want to talk about it. People don't want to talk about what that looks like. And in some cases, we have places in spiritual centers who we have pastors, and we have those in leadership who may be over an area, but they haven't been trained. I've even heard a pastor say, I am a clinician, and this pastor said this, I'm a clinician because God called me to pastor. So I sat there when that person said that to me, and I said, well, what training do you have? And he said, I don't have to have training because the Lord tells me what to say. I do it by the Spirit. And so, I had this conversation with this pastor, and, we agreed to disagree, but I pointed out to him the scripture in Timothy, and it says, study to show yourself approved, because a workman doesn't have to be ashamed of that which he studied. And so you don't, if God called you to this space, or God called you to be a healer in emotional wellness, then I believe that God will cause you to be educated in that area, and God is going to provide what you need so that you can heal and be effective in emotional wellness in your spiritual centers. And so, what does this training require? Because we're going to promote effective training here because we absolutely believe in this, that God is going to not only show you, and God is not only going to just move, but God is also going to put effective training there, because healing doesn't just come from thought. Healing comes from action and movement. And so when we put action on it, that means we are literally using the training that we have. So what does it look like, to go back to the scripture that I use, what does it look like to guard our hearts, or to be vigilant over our own hearts, because flows this issue of life, or life matters, or self matters, flow out of this. And again, please call in. Let's have this discussion, because this is a matter of public safety. It's a matter of community wellness, and it's a matter of what does it look like in our churches and in our spiritual centers to have this effective training and communication about our emotional wellness. And so, because, we look and we talk, but before I even move to the next topic, I want people to know, and the people who are listening this morning, that emotional wellness is healthy and holy. It is, I believe that it's ordained and it's a requirement to maintain our holiness, is to do this matter of self-care and self-examination. And for those of you who are like, well, where is that at in Scripture? I want you to look at 1 Corinthians 11 and look at how Paul is talking to individuals who are participating in this gift that was given to him by Christ. That's how he describes it in talking about the Lord's Supper. And he says that let us examine ourselves. And so I absolutely believe that sometimes in our spiritual centers and in our churches, we neglect to keep that examination going. And so what does it look like to examine ourselves? And so again, we are going to encourage you to have professional training there. What does it look like to examine ourselves and to see what does it look like? And each week I do something. I do a Facebook Live, and I call it On the Men. And yesterday I did it, and I told people, number one, self-care is huge. There are places and times where you have to pull back. You have to go back and adjust. You have to go back and look at your own wellness. You have to go back and look at your own care and what is going on with you. That is that self-examination. What does it look like, and what's going on, and what do you need to level out? What do you need? Where do you need to go? It might mean that you need to go sit on the couch, have a conversation with someone. It may mean that you may need to go take a day and maybe do a staycay, wherever you are. It may mean that you need to journal. Whatever that is, what is it that the self-care so that you can start to have this balanced piece and bring balance back to yourself? And so, what do we do? Because everything that we do is going to require us to have good emotional wellness and to have good balance. So, you guys call in. Talk to me. Put some messages up. 770-988-6461. And talking about it. And I want to go back to talk about some of the statistics that were listed by the CDC. And you can just look up that report. I pulled it up through the Washington Post, but you can look it up just by going to the CDC and looking at the new post. And these rates are going through 2016. So we're in 2018, which means they're gathering the statistics for 2017. So these statistics are pretty, they're pretty recent. And they're great. They're great statistics, and it's something that we need to know. And so the CDC, or the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, which actually is housed in Atlanta, Georgia, did the study. And so this is what they found. They found, one, that there's an increase in suicide across the nation in rural areas. So I know that this show is based in Atlanta, and this show is based in a metro area. But mind you, Atlanta is connected to an entire state. And so, the whole, how can I say it? The whole state is affected by this suicide. The entire United States of America is affected by suicide. And what they're saying is our rural areas have increased. The rural areas are places where they don't have a lot of access. And so our rural area churches are spiritual centers of healing and hope, and people go. But guess what? In those same places, we have a lot of human misconduct. I guess that's the best way I can say it. If I get in trouble, Dr. Jones will call me. But we have, and I say a lot of human misconduct, which means we have a lot of quiet secrets. We have a lot of things where we just don't talk. I am from a rural area, so we go to church, we're quiet, we go home. We don't speak about home life. We don't speak about things that are happening in our home life. And I think one, to be a radio personality, you have to have a level of transparency. Because you see us sit here and we talk, and we encourage you guys to talk. But the level of transparency is this, when I was growing up in my rural church, I was loud because I could not be heard. I was very loud, but I wasn't heard. But there was a lot of traumatic incident that was happening in my personal space. I didn't know who to talk to. And so because I didn't know who to talk to, I became really loud, but I was loud and not heard. And so I say that because in our rural areas, we have a lot of people who are loud, but they're unable to be heard. And so because of this, we're missing this place of healing and this place to bring in professionals and this place to talk about what it looks like across the board for our spiritual healing and our emotional wellness. And so that the increase in rural areas between the years of 1999 and 2016 in suicidal rate is a big deal, because we're losing people because they don't have access and they don't have linkage to professional services. Again, I mentioned, Nevada is the only state that had a decline in suicidal thought in these last 17 years. And so what does that look like? Wow. So that's a big deal. And so 45,000 suicides occurred in 2016. That is double the amount of homicides. There's been a lot of focus on homicide. And homicide is when another individual takes someone's life. Suicide is when an individual takes their own life. And so we focused a lot on individuals taking the life of others. We focused on police brutality. We focused on community brutality. We focused on, these unhealthy spaces that are causing harm to others. But what has happened that 45,000 people in 2016 took their lives. Those individuals took their own lives. And it's twice the number of homicides that happened in 2016. And so it made it, and it is the 10th leading cause of death in this nation. That's big. That's huge. I mean, that's right up there with heart disease. That's right up there, you guys. That's right up there with heart disease. Like that's right up there with diabetes. That's right up there. You guys, that's right up there. And so when does it become an epidemic? And when does the church say, now is the time to call in the professionals? Now is the time to call in those that understand and that can see it from both sides. When do we call in our clinically trained pastoral care staff? When do we call in our licensed clinical social workers and our licensed professional counselors and our licensed marriage family therapists? When do we call those individuals in to come and have conversation? When do we hit the hard topic? When do we move beyond altar call to the altar work? And so when do we do that? And those are the questions. So, you guys call in 770-988-6461. We want to hear from you. When do we do this? Because that's a lot. And, somebody just said, it is a public safety issue. And public safety issues, we see them as epidemic. I mean, it's an epidemic. And I'm saying this because, as a clinician, I see this increase. It's the 10th leading cause of death in the United States of America. So, we do preventative measures in our church a lot for healthcare issues. A lot of churches do health fairs. A lot of churches do things where they have the Red Cross come out and talk about how to get blood and blood pressure and what to put in your body. They had the Diabetes Association come out. They had the Cancer Association come out. And recently, in the month of May, I was able to participate in a mental health fair at one of the local churches. Again, I'm from a rural community. And so, and this pastor was brilliant in thinking, let's do some preventative measures. The problem was that the community saw it as a stigma. I'm going to keep saying this throughout the show. We have to cure the stigma. And this pastor thought it great to bring 5 professionals who had been trained professionally and both spiritually to sit around and talk, to sit around the table and have a conversation with members of the community about the key to good emotional wellness. And for those who participated, they were very grateful because they did not know that they had these things in their community that they had access to. And some people, well, I don't have money or I don't have the connectors. So this is where, what can the church provide? What can our spiritual centers provide to help those who come? What would be a good investment is to bring that professional in. So, I'm going to go back to the statistics again. Looking at it. So among people, and I stated this, I think the last time I was on the Therapeutic Conversation show, I stated this, among people ages 15 to 34, suicide is the second leading cause of death. Wow. I just want to pause right there. I see no need in rushing through that. Need that to sink in for those who are listening. And I want to say it one more time because hopefully this will push you to go look up these statistics. Individuals between the ages of 15 to 34, suicide is the second leading cause of death. Not heart disease, not diabetes, not homicide. The second leading cause of death in the United States for individuals between the ages of 15 to 34 is suicide. Church, if that's not a call out, I don't know what is. I don't know what else. Because individuals between the ages of 15 to 34. So 15 to 18, let me explain. You're still adolescent. You're still child. What's happening? 18 to 34, you're considered to be young adult. What is happening in this development process of adulthood that's telling people my life isn't worth it. I do not have a life that matters to be here. That is the question. What has happened to you? And then somehow we have found a space to demonize suicide. They say the spirit of suicide came upon someone. The spirit of suicide came. The spirit of suicide. But what if we ask the question, what has happened to you? And again, Dr. Jones laughs at me because I see scripture different. And this again is scripture based. When Jesus saw the man that was tortured among the tombs, he looked at him. The man in the tombs, full of this legion, this demon, this thousands of demons inside of him, looked, and it was recognition there. It was recognition there. And it wasn't a demonized moment, though this man was full of demons. Jesus literally is like, what are you full of? What happened to you? Let's get that out of you. You don't have to sit among the dead. I use that scripture and I bring that piece up, that piece of what Christ did, because those who are thinking suicidal thoughts, those who are contemplating suicide, those who are in these stages of suicidal ideation progressing to the act of suicide, guess what? They're sitting among the tombs full of something. But suicide is the end result. Suicide is not the demon. I'll put that out there. I know I have some people that disagree with me today on that. But suicide is the end result. So, so looking at it and talking to you from a professional standpoint, again, call in 770-988-6461. Please leave your comments. But suicide is going to happen in these 3 stages. And you're going to have suicidal ideations. You have ideations. That means you're thinking about it. You're contemplating it. Something has happened that is so traumatic on your brain that the issues of life are so weighty that you're thinking about, maybe I don't belong here. Maybe I don't need to be here. Maybe this will be a place of escape and rescue permanently. We don't know why people think that. This is why I'm gonna try to help this morning to kill the stigma of suicide and to undemonize it. I guess I don't know if that's a word, but I want to do that. And so it's this place of depressed weight, a depressive mood, and that is where we come in and we can see these spiritual connective pieces to our emotional wellness. What has put us in this place of a depressed state that we don't think our life matters? And we've had a lot in the last 5 years of Black Lives Matter, Lives Matters, Brown Lives Matters. But what happens when individual lives matter? So this is where we are this morning. Because, again, suicide is when you take your own life. Homicide is when a life is taken by someone else. So we're focusing on this morning because what puts you in a depressive state where your life does not matter? And so that first piece is suicidal ideation. The next piece is you're sitting here. The second stage of this is when you're moving into not only the ideation, but you're coming up with a plan. So at this point, you move beyond, hey, my life doesn't matter. Maybe it would be easier for me to escape this depressive state and some people, they see it as a place of being free. To cast their care means to cast their life because it's so much weight for them. Again, the base scripture what I used today was Proverbs 4:24. You have these issues of life and they're so weighty. They're so weighty. We don't know how to stay in this peace with them. So to cast. So, the second place is you are coming up with a plan. And to my leaders in churches and spiritual places, and to my leaders in places where spirituality is a big focus of our work. Hey, this is where you can start to see patterns with people. Those 15 to 34-year-olds, you begin to see a pattern. Those people who are dedicated for my 15 to 18-year-olds, they're dedicated to playing sports, or they're dedicated to being in band, or they're dedicated to doing community activities. You start to see them pull back because they're beginning to think their life, they're beginning to pull back into the tombs. Can I go there? They're beginning to go into these places and dwell among the dead. That means that they don't see value. And they're coming up with plans. And some of these plans, you guys, are right there in our faces. They're plans that are right there in our faces, but we can't see them if we're not paying attention. And then this third level is intent. And notice I haven't said that the people are committing suicide, but now they have a plan, they have intent. And so you have the suicidal ideation that will be attached with a plan. And the third step is this place of intent. Intent, you can see it. You may feel it, you may question it, but this is when those professionals, if you bring them into your spiritual centers and those places, they can show you what it looks like when someone may be contemplating and how to love on them and how to embrace them and not demonize their emotional wellness. That's a big piece. And in the Black church especially, we want to scream it out, yell it out, shout it out. We want to do our two-step and put our feet on it. We want to put the devil under our feet. But sometimes, because we've demonized it so much, it isn't the devil. It's just the weight of life. And the weight of life has come. And because of that, we don't know how to put the weight of our own lives under our feet. We don't know how to bury that. And in some cases, we have buried it so much that it ended up being a seed and now it's coming up. We didn't bury it thinking, that it was dead. It was a thing that could birth or produce bitterness or could produce strife or could produce something that makes us want to end it all. And so, and a great example of that is Job. I won't even go there with Job today because some people, they're like, that's too much. But, we giving you examples and what to do. So back to the statistics again, among people ages 15 to 34, suicide is the second leading cause of death. 45,000. I didn't say 4,500. I didn't say 45 people. I didn't say 450. 45,000 suicides occurred. Suicides. That means they completed. I gave you the steps before someone does the act. Mind you, I'm not using the word commit. Committed something, it sounds like a crime. It sounds like, this is something that they can recuperate from or rehabilitate from if we lock them down. We lock them up, then they can rehabilitate from. No, they can't. Like, once they've completed, so this act of suicide, this act is the response to this depressive mood, to this unstable emotional wellness, this act of suicide. And so 45,000 people acted and completed in 2016. Again, I just want you guys to sit with the statistic just for a minute. It's a lot. It is a lot. And a lot of this is happening in our rural communities. 45,000 people completed, and it is the second leading cause of death between those ages 15 to 34. And I think, one other thing is that we've been looking at black skin and all the collateral damage from taught racism, sexism, and classism. But suicide doesn't have a face. Suicide doesn't have a racial barrier. It doesn't have an ethnic preference. It doesn't. Suicide will move through wherever it moves. And so what do we do in our spiritual centers to combat that? What do we do? Suicide will come across whoever it comes across. Notice that statistic didn't have color. It didn't have a face on it. It said ages. It didn't put male or female. And the statistics go deeper. They do go into male and female. But that statistic I gave you, I purposely gave you that statistic because it didn't say our young ladies between, or our young men between, or our African-American males, or our Hispanic females. It didn't take you there. This is 45,000 people, human life, those who have red blood. That's what was there. And so, what do we do? Because this is now, that's epidemic numbers. That was in 1 year. That wasn't a collective year. That wasn't a collection of years. That wasn't over the 17-year span. In 1 year, 45,000 people completed this act of taking their life. So that is huge. And the other thing we look at, because we want to talk about the resources, The other thing that we look at, some of the weight of this depressive state comes from economic status, and it's an increase. The statistics also show that there was an increase in suicidal rate among those who are marginalized, based on ethnicity, those who are marginalized based on gender, those who are marginalized based on socioeconomic status, like the weight of what's going on. And so what are we doing to offer resources and trainings in our community? What are we doing to show people the weight of your economics? You can get help for that, so that they don't feel like the best way for them to overcome the issue is to take their lives out, and that will make everything better, because you are necessary. It won't make everything better if you take your life. It will not. And so some of the resources, I wanted to go over some of those. And for those who are listening, please know this, because, it's 9:42, and we promise you guys a good hour of talking about emotional wellness, and how the church can come in and work. And so we want to make sure that also we give you good resources that are connected to communities. And so one of the biggest resources that you can use across the board, no matter where you are, it is a 1-800 number. And this 1-800 number they will help you wherever you are. They will send people out. And it is the suicide prevention number. And so the number that you can call is the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. And so this is something that you can post, you can put up. This is simple for those who are listening that are leaders in their spiritual communities. This is something that you can use. And that number is 1-800-273-8255. For those of you who are watching this morning, if someone can type that out, and put it up so people can see it, 1-800-273-8255. And the beauty of technology and the increase of how much we use it, they even have an online chat service. And so if you don't want to talk, they want you to type. Our millennial generation and those after use their thumbs. They use their thumbs a lot. What I mean is they text, and they talk via text because they don't know how to be vocal. And so they even have this way for you to do that. So the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. Spiritual leaders and those in our spiritual communities, please do not find shame in using this phone number and offering to people. I was listening. I listen a lot to individuals with social media when it comes down to emotional wellness. And there was a pastor, a big name in the United States and in community. And he did a great thing by offering help and prayer for individuals who were feeling suicidal. But in the middle of that, I as a professional, typed in to his live stream, and I said, this is a number that people can call even if they cannot reach you. And he inboxed me back, and he said, thank you for that, because I was trying to take this weight on myself because I really just felt like people needed prayer. So use the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. Guess what? That does not take away from your spirituality. It does not take away from you being a great leader. It does not take away from you being a great pastor, a great minister. It doesn't take away. Guess what that does? It shows you that you have a heart of compassion to make a difference. It shows you that to pull someone out of the fire, and I'm referencing Jude, and to pull someone out of the fire doesn't necessarily mean that you have to jump in there with them. It means that you can give them resources to where they can manage and connect with professionals. Another one that I would like to give you, and then I'm going to give you some stuff for, because Dr. Brian also does, he does groups inside of spiritual centers in regards to depressed mood and how to combat some of this negative emotional wellness stuff going on. Is the other one I want to use for those in the state of Georgia who are listening. We have the Georgia Crisis and Access Line. And the Georgia Crisis and Access Line is one that if anywhere in the state of Georgia you dial this number, they can absolutely come to you, help you, and be right there. And that number is 1-800-715-4225. And they will show up, they will help you, and they can do that. And so please connect. And Dr. Jones himself also goes out to our spiritual centers. The beauty of connecting with someone who understands your spiritual side as well as the professional side of emotional wellness is that, guess what? It allows you to be you. It allows you to talk about how you are able to connect with God and with spirit, and how you are able to use that human resource and that spiritual resource to help you combat. On the other hand, you also have this professional that's telling you, let's look at some coping skills and some places where we can connect, where you can be connected to community. And so, you can reach Dr. Jones through the Joshua generation. And so I'm going to give you that information. I'm going to pull that up. I also do trainings as well, through MLC Consulting and through Mending Life Concepts Empowerment Group. And so Dr. Jones and I have partnered several times and are currently partnering and doing trainings. And so at the end of this month, the last Thursday of this month, we will be hosting group, and it is called Resilient Talk. And so we will be hosting that in Smyrna at 7 p.m. the last Thursday of this month. And so we want to talk about resilience. And if you need help, you can call Dr. Jones, 470-545-2297. If you want to connect in regards to the Resilient Talk group. And you can contact me at 470-494-4334, or you can go to my website, www.mendinglifeconcepts.com, and you'll see the information there. You can also go to Dr. Jones' website at www.joshua-generation.net. And that way you can see and get connected. That group is going to talk about resilience. Trauma is a big deal in our churches. And in the last, these last 10 minutes, I want to talk about how to connect. Trauma, invite us out. Connect with us. You can leave us messages. And I know there may be other people providing this service, but we want to show you that there is service where you can connect and you can provide, and things can be provided. To all my spiritual leaders and all those who are ministers and pastors, you don't have to carry that weight alone. When I talked with that minister that day, he was thankful that we gave him that information. He was like, I've been trying to carry this weight for my church, and I don't know how to do that, because guess what? It sounds simple, but he didn't know to just type in suicide prevention, because he really just thought, I got to carry this because I'm the pastor. I got to carry this because I'm over the people. And so, we didn't go into that. We didn't go into that today, but, our pastors are carrying a lot of weight. We've had that conversation. I've been here for that show. So, but our pastors are carrying this weight. Our spiritual leaders are carrying this weight and not realizing that they have this resource. So you don't have to do it alone. We can come in and help you. We can come into your spiritual centers. We can come into your churches. We can come into your mosque. We can come into your temples, and we can talk about this and have a great conversation about what does it look like to be emotionally well and to be connected with the body of Christ at the same time. Like, that is something that sounds crazy, but guess what? We don't have to live among the tombs. We don't have to stay there. We can cast our cares because God cares for us, and those things that are bogging us down, those things that are keeping us in a depressed state, we can cast that because we don't have to hold that, and we can be integrated back into our communities with a better emotional state. And so, okay, I see that. So next week, the local and national pastors on mental health and on the church, they're going to have a conversation about this. So that's a big deal. Hey, so pastors are already coming together having the conversation. And so let that conversation continue. Please connect with that. Connect with Dr. Brian Jones so he can give you more information on how you can connect with the local and national pastors for that insight conversation about mental health and the church. You want to connect with that. Again, contact us. About coming out to your spiritual centers. And I want to wrap up, and I'm going to give you this information again because I don't want you to feel like we rush through it. Remember this, that out of your heart flows the issues of life. And so you want to guard your heart. I'm not telling you to be a guarded person because that's not what that text is telling you. That text is telling you that use wisdom to know what goes in and out of your mind. That is a difficult thing to do in this day and age when everything is hustle and bustle and busy. and we're just trying to get the task done. We're just trying to get the things met. We're just trying to make things happen. And so that is hard. Hustle, bustle, hustle, bustle. We don't take the time to do self-care. Self-care literally is showing yourself, showing effective, listen to what I'm saying, self-care is this, showing effective love and faith for you. Self-care is showing effective love and faith, care for you. It's showing that you are effective in loving and caring for yourself. Self-care is a big deal, but we hustle and bustle, and so we don't get to it. And so here we are, with those things, and so that lead to these states of contemplating whether your life matters. And I'm saying that today because I almost wanted to tell somebody to type hashtag my life matters, because we haven't really harped on that. We've been looking at all the things that are happening, but those statistics are real. Those statistics are live. I'm going to give you those statistics one more time. 45,000 people in 2016 committed, and I don't like that's how they typed it, but I'm going to say they participated in the act of suicide. They completed. They had a thought, they had a plan, they had an intent, and they acted on that because they saw somewhere where their life did not have value on this earth. And so that's a big deal. And then between the ages of 15, to 34, it's the second leading cause of death. So my life matters. This suicide is this thing. It's someone taking their own life, and so it's not homicide. It's not a disease that's happening. It's not any of that. It's literally a person saying, "My life doesn't have value in this space," and I phrased it like that on purpose. My life doesn't have value in this particular space that I'm in, and that's so overwhelming that if my life doesn't have value, there's no need in me being in this space at all. Again, suicide does not have a face. It happens among, and it happens among those, gender, sex, socioeconomic status, and different rates, and it fluctuates. On the other hand, it literally affects everyone in the world. Someone takes their life, you mourn. We saw it twice in 7 days where someone took their life and the world mourned. It wasn't just a community thing. We see in rural areas that it's higher in rural areas. They don't have a lot of connections. They don't have a lot of outlets. And so remember, two big things that you can do. In the state of Georgia, you have the Georgia Crisis and Access Line. And that number, again, is 1-800-715-4225. And nationally, you have the Suicide Prevention Line and the Lifeline for the Suicide Prevention Lifeline. And you can utilize that in your churches. You also have professionals that want to come out and help you. You have Dr. Brian Jones. He does an excellent job of talking about, what does depression look like in the church and what can we do? And he does this, and it's not a blurred line. I watched him do it. He does this by merging biblical principle with professional ethic. And so you want to see that in your churches. To answer that question today, it is necessary for you to have the professionals come out. I understand, and like that pastor that I was talking to that night, he was grateful because that's not his background. He hasn't been trained in mental health. He has not been trained in emotional wellness. What he's been trained in is I can pray for you and we can cast it out and we can do that, but he hasn't done that. So, he was very grateful. You can also contact me as well, and that's www.mendinglifeconcepts.com, and I too do that. And so the last Thursday of this month at the Smyrna location for Joshua Generation, we will be doing Resilient Talk, and we will be talking about how to be resilient through trauma, and we will be talking about self-care. Again, I want to thank everybody for listening today. Thank you for joining in. Please, please, please continue to support Dr. Brian Jones. He is excellent at what he does. He is the guru. That's what I say today. He is the guru of looking at how we can bring professional ethic and emotional wellness to our churches and how not to leave God out, but to invite God in. And so he has done an excellent job and will continue to do that. Thank you, Dr. Brian Jones, for allowing me to come on and guest host today. Again, remember, you can contact Dr. Brian Jones at www.joshua-generation.net. Please, 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 please contact him and get connected and go to his website. He is absolutely offering free trainings. He is offering so much stuff that you can connect to for all the people. I said, some people, they feel like they don't have access. So please connect with Dr. Brian Jones and the Joshua Generation. You can also connect with MLC Consulting at www.mendinglifeconcepts.com. Please join us for the Resilient Talks the last Thursday of this month, and it will be at our Smyrna location, and it will be at 7 p.m. We look forward to seeing those who will come. We will put that up on the website so that you can sign up and we can see the amount of people that are coming. Remember that my life matters, so it isn't Black Lives Matter today. It isn't that. My life matters because it's important. Thank you to 108 Praise Radio for hosting the Therapeutic Conversation Show with Dr. Brian Jones. Please join us next week. The conversation will continue because we are going to continue to talk about how to merge biblical practice, how to merge spiritual practice with professional therapeutic sources, because that is so important. You can't do it by yourself. And so we got to be a team. We got to be a body of Christ. And so as we examine ourselves, let's have some professionals there to do it. Please connect. If you need some emergency services, please connect with Georgia Crisis Access Line. Please connect with the Suicide Prevention Lifeline. Please connect with Dr. Brian Jones. His number has been posted. You also have his website. Please connect with myself, Margaret Conley, LCSW. My number too has been posted. Again, I'll give it to you, 470-494-4334. Please connect. You don't have to be alone. You don't have to be stuck out there. If you want to invite us into your churches and into your spiritual places, again, please connect. You can request us, send us an email, connect with us at our Facebook pages. Dr. Brian Jones, he is listed. You can find him as Brian Jones. You can find me as Margaret L. Conley. Please connect. Do not try to do it by yourself. And for all my pastors out there who are really, really, really connecting because you are concerned about the emotional wellness of your church, the people, and the community, thank you for everything that you do as well. We bless you. We thank you. We thank God for allowing this moment to happen. Again, we started with inviting God into this space. And so we invite God into your homes. We invite God to show you how to connect and how to be there. Because, again, you don't have to sit in the tombs. You don't have to sit among those that are dead in dead spaces. But reconnect with your community and know that your time is now. Your life is valuable. Again, thank you for joining in on Therapeutic Conversation Show with Dr. Brian Jones. I've been your host today, Margaret L. Conley. Thank you, 108 Praise Radio, and thank you to those who have listened and participated. Again, like it, love it, share it, and if you're watching it later, put hashtag replay so we can know that you got this valuable information. Thank you, and have a blessed, wonderful day. Go out, be great, and live your best life knowing that you can connect. All right.